This is Tisha Johnson reporting the summary of the first article, Never Say Anything a Kid Can Say by Stephen C. Reinhardt. Stephen C. Reinhardt was a math teacher that noticed from his conclusion of after he taught that there were some students that were showing low levels of achievement. He thought that he was doing everything possible for his students in lecturing, explaining directly under direct instruction model, but he's still seen the decline in his students' academic performances. So he decided to implement change over time, over a period of time. He went from direct instruction model to a more open-ended question model to where the students were learning in a more non-traditional method of instruction, more of a student-centered problem-based approach, to where he was letting the students learn by the teacher asking questions. This student-centered based approach consists of the students working together in groups, discussing problems, sharing their ideas and solutions to come up with a solution and report that back to the class and share their ideas with the class. The small changes that I implemented every year became to show great results by doing the student-centered problem-based approach versus direct instruction model. Quote 1. I conclude that if my students were to ever really learn mathematics, they would have to do the explaining and I the listening. My reflection on quote 1 that read, I concluded that if my students were to ever really learn math, they would have to do the explaining and I the listening. While I'm teaching math, I want to know if the students are learning my instruction. If I am up doing and explaining on the board with different things and I don't get any feedback from my students, I don't know if they're understanding the math problems. I don't know if they're understanding how to solve the problems. So I feel like the best way to teach math is for the students to explain their thinking and their problem solving to me as their teacher. I think this is very important. As a classroom, as a class, as a community classroom, I think it's very important to have the students explaining in groups what kind of solution they came up with and why. And the teacher actually asking them questions, probing them with open-ended questions, trying to find out what they already know, what they're learning, and what they have learned through the lesson. Quote 2. Replace lectures with set of questions. Reflection on Article 2, or Quote 2. Replace lectures with set of questions. Instead of the teacher structuring her class with pure lectures, change that out and set open-ended questions to ask her students to explain. When you are tempted to do lectures only, you need to remind yourself that when the information is transferred from the board or the overhead to the student's notes, it's not actually passing through the students' minds. They're not problem solving. They're not, it's not registering with them exactly what is being learned and being taught. So that is the reason that you need to ask them questions and probe them to understand that they know how to solve a problem. They understand concepts. They understand what strategies to use, and all of that. It's 100% better on a student that comprehends slower to replace the lectures with the set of open-end questions. Quote 3. No one in a group is finished until everyone in the group can explain and defend the solution. My reflection on quote 3. No one in the group is finished unless everyone in the group can explain and defend the solution. I think as a teacher, we need to hold every person, every student in the classroom accountable for learning, for answering questions, even though if they're not right. I think that everybody needs to understand how to solve a problem, how to solve a math problem. What is the solution? What is the outcome of the problem? And when you only have one person talking and no one else is talking in the group, that is really not showing the students that communication in the group matters. Communication is key here, and their communication skills needs to advance, needs to grow as the year goes on. So when they have the same person responding to every problem or telling their solution, the other students that are not talking is not growing their communication skills. They have to learn how to explain why they got their answer, how did they come up with that solution. And I think it's really, really good for students to realize that they are going to get called on, whether they know the answer or not, and they need to be prepared to answer and to participate in class. And that's the way I feel like that students learn more is being able to communicate and their thought process through a problem and to get their viewpoint on a solution versus a viewpoint of another student. To conclude my video on the first article for my math class in my graduate studies is that I would like to say that most teachers that enter the profession They enter the profession because they really care about students, they really care about children, and really have a passion to teach. But we as teachers, if we are telling the students the answers to problems, um, shortcuts to do to get the problem quicker without really thinking about how to get the problem, we're really not doing those students any good. In my opinion, as an incoming teacher, I feel like we have to pick these students' brains on what they really know and make them think about um, the problem, make them plan out a solution, plan out how to execute and solve the problem. And if you don't question instead of lecture, you're really cheating them out of the opportunity to make sense of math and the opportunity for them learning at a critical thinking level and a problem solving level. We want to help students to engage in real learning. Um, you have to ask really great open-ended questions and allow the students to struggle a little bit and place the responsibility of learning directly on the student's shoulders. I'm convinced that children learn. I'm convinced that children learn in more ways than I know how to teach. But by listening to them, listening to the students, I'm not only giving them the opportunity to develop deep understanding, but also I am able to develop true insight into what they know and how they think.